At this point, I've made a decent amount of lists ranking some of the most powerful characters in all of One Piece. Now it's time to do the ultimate list. In this video, I'll be attempting to rank the top 10 strongest One Piece characters of all time. To clarify, this list will consist of every character when they were in their prime, as I believe that's generally a more fun list to make. This list won't include characters that are literally completely featless, so that would include characters such as Imu, the Gorosei, Kong, Joy Boy, and Dragon. Now Dragon might be a bit of a surprise, as I do have similarly unknown characters such as Sebek on this list, but the character is in a pretty peculiar position where he hasn't really fought anyone of value, nor is he in a faction such as a Pirates or Navy where you can compare him to characters of similar stature. It's 100% possible, and honestly likely he deserves to be on this list. However, for the time being, I'll have my boy Dragon off the list. So for now, think of him as and any other obvious characters as honorable mentions. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, and if you really like me, subscribe as well. Also follow me on my social media pages and join the Discord as well. Also follow me on Twitch, where I'll be streaming every Friday at 6 AM PST, talking about the new One Piece chapter while playing some games. I don't know, Pirate Warriors, something like that. As a side note, I wanted to make a special shout out to viewer Big Man, also known as Boston's Greater on Twitch. He gifted 10 subs and then 200 bits on my Twitch stream. Holy shit, you're a legend, bro, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. And with that, let's get to it. To start off this list, I have a former fleet admiral of the Marines and a monster of the older generation, Sengoku the Buddha. Now Sengoku is definitely a character I would look at as underrated, as in my opinion, even at his old age, he could put a decent fight against any of the admirals. There's going to be a trend, especially in the latter half of this list, of characters belonging to the older generation being talked about in higher guards, as they had to deal with each other in general, which is already fucking crazy. The fact that there was a time period where all these characters existed at the same time and were fighting with each other frequently shows to me at least that the prime version of most of these characters are not to be messed with. Now to argue why I think Sengoku deserves to be on this list, but isn't as high as he could be, Sengoku is easily one of, if not the most intelligent characters on this list, and I think him and Garp make a pretty obvious brains and bronze duo. With the help of Garp, the two managed to defeat Shiki, a character who, if not for an unfortunate weather accident, could have possibly defeated the Roger Pirates. Additionally, even as an older man during Marineford, the man was getting shit done. He is capable of clashing evenly with shockwaves from the Gura no Mi, and even was capable of sending the majority of the Blackbeard pirates flying. This is pretty crazy, as this consisted not only of Blackbeard, but his newly acquired crew, which contained the most powerful of the level 6 impel down prisoners. Additionally, after Ace's death, when Garp was walking over to presumably murder the shit out of a Kainu, Sengoku, without even being in his Buddha form, was capable of knocking down the enraged Garp. Now you could argue that Garp was also trying to stop himself as well, but still a Garp that just witnessed Ace die, so it's impressive nonetheless. Sengoku also contains one of the most powerful Zoan Devil Fruits, as well as Devil Fruits in the entire series, the mythical Hito no Mi model Buddha. Like I mentioned prior, this was clashing with Gura no Mi enhanced shockwaves, so this goes to show how absolutely insane Sengoku is. Just a reminder, most of the feats I just mentioned were from an older Sengoku, so it's insane to think what a character like this could do in their prime. The reason he isn't as high up as some of the other older generation characters on this list is that he doesn't have the narrative arguments that characters such as Garp, Roger, and Whitebeard have. While he did become Fleet Admiral, he isn't known as a hero of the Marines like Garp, nor does he have epithets of the level of Pirate King or Strongest Man in the World, like Roger and Whitebeard respectively. Additionally, like I mentioned prior, I think he is very much the brains to Garp's bronze, meaning that while he is a master strategist, he may not have the physical power to overcome some of the other top tiers of the series. Even in this fight with Shiki, you can make an argument that the fact that half of Marineford was destroyed would be an anti-feat for Sengoku, as a team-up of Prime, Garp, and Sengoku would most likely destroy most characters. You could also argue that Garp carried the fight, although this is headcanon to be fair, and we just don't know how exactly the fight went down. Still, Sengoku is an absolute monster that, in my opinion, absolutely deserves to be on this list. Alright, we're already getting a bit controversial with this position, but for the number 9 spot, we have the world's strongest beast, Kaido the Beast. Now, Kaido could be argued way higher or way lower depending on a couple of factors. How much you think he was worn down by the time Luffy attained Gear 5th, how his fight with Oden could have gone, how you think he scales to a character such as Big Mom, and how his fight went down with Shanks, to name a few. Now, all that being said, it's absolutely unsurprising that Kaido is on this list, as this guy is an absolute monster. He has one of the best Devil Fruits in the entire series, and he is clearly looked at as the benchmark for Luffy to reach Yonko tiers of strength. As many would argue that Kaido deserves to be at least a few spots higher up on this list based on his performance in Wano, I want to argue why he's at the number 9 spot. Now for one, whether you like it or not, both Kaido and Big Mom are presented as relatively equal narrative-wise during pretty much the entirety of the Wano arc. From splitting the sky, to their multi-day long battle, to both being presented as these natural disasters during the rooftop fight, it's hard to ignore the amount these characters are presented side by side in battle. In addition, Big Mom seems to not fear Kaido in the slightest, being perfectly fine with stepping into his territory, even when Kaido threatened her, and also being okay with throwing jabs Kaido's way during the rooftop fight. The two were also both beaten by Worst Generation members who awakened the Devil Fruits to beat the Yonko. Now I'm not saying Big Mom's stronger than Kaido or even at his level, as she didn't even make this list. However, I am saying that she gets immensely downplayed and the two are definitely more equal than the fans give credit for. Still, the fact that many people believe that Big Mom is one of the weaker Yonko and Kaido is usually presented alongside her is, in my opinion, an anti-feat swung in Kaido's direction. Still, Kaido is an absolute monster, and the fact that a statement of the characters he deems capable of standing up to him is a statement I constantly use when discussing One Piece power scaling shows the level of strength this character possesses. Like I said prior, he could definitely be argued higher or lower, but for now, I'm okay with putting him at the number 9 spot. Number 8 goes to everyone's favorite, the boy, the future Pirate King, the main character of the goddamn series, Mugiwara Monkey D. Luffy. Now Luffy has obviously reached new heights since even the Katakuri fight, where he learned to use advanced observation haki. During Wano, we see him reach new peaks, learning his advanced armament and Conqueror's haki to his final buff of the arc, the fantastic Gear 5th awakening of his now known Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. I won't go into incredible depth about Luffy, as I've talked about him pretty frequently in multiple other videos. What I mainly want to go over is his ranking above the ever-imposing Kaido. I have heard a multitude of people argue that Kaido is actually more powerful than Luffy, even if he lost to him, considering that Kaido was worn down from his fight against Big Mom, the rooftop fight, and the Yamato fight before his final showdown with Luffy. I'd like to point out that while this is true, Luffy wasn't just sitting on his ass doing nothing during Onigashima. He butt heads with characters like Ulti, and even though Kaido took damage during the rooftop fight, I would argue that Luffy took significantly more. Man was almost knocked out multiple times. I mean, you don't see characters like Kaido and Big Mom referring to the newer generation as a living hell, something the rooftop combatants admitted. Luffy himself was completely knocked out and thrown off Onigashima before coming back and fighting Kaido again. All of this is to say that it is admittedly hard to determine who is more powerful between Luffy and Kaido if both are at 100% fighting each other one-on-one. But I think it's ridiculous to act as though Luffy was completely fine just because he had a meal after falling off of Onigashima, while Kaido was completely worn out and unable to battle. Still, I would argue the two are comparable, and I would go as far as to say the two are most likely comparable to who I have at the number 7 and 6 spots as well. I genuinely believe Luffy will almost certainly receive additional buffs later on, so for now, I have the future Pirate King in the number 8 spot. Number 7 goes to a character that has absolutely been in the limelight in the most recent chapters, and that's Yonko and the captain of the red-haired pirates, red-haired Shanks. Now, if you've seen either of my videos on the strongest non-Devil Fruit users or the strongest Yonko, you know I tend to go to bat pretty hard for a character like Shanks, and the most recent chapters of One Piece have only cemented my opinion further. I believe Shanks is probably as strong as he's going to get, and considering that, in my opinion, he's going to be a major player in the final arc of One Piece, I have him above the likes of characters such as Kaido and Big Mom. Kaido himself states that Shanks is one of the few characters capable of standing up to him, and I believe Shanks' feats with haki speak to why he's capable of such. He's the only character to my knowledge to be able to damage structures with just his presence, and his Conqueror's haki freaked out even the likes of Admiral Green Bull, even though Shanks wasn't near him when he exerted it. Like, near him at all, to be clear. Like, far away. I don't know if it was a country away, we don't know how far away it was, but he was far away. Additionally, he's a rival to Mihawk, and a character who I think is incredibly underrated. I have a whole video about why I think his power is immense, so check that out too. He was also capable of stopping Kaido from reaching Marineford, stopping the entire war himself with just him and his crew's presence. This is especially insane, as the Marines were pretty riled up after Whitebeard's death. I don't think I have to argue why Shanks is on this list, only really his positions relative to Luffy and Kaido, but for now, considering the final arc seems to be about the two newer generations of the original Yonko, and shonens tend to progress in power, I have Shanks at the number 7 spot. Number 6 is a real favorite of mine and another character I've talked about extensively on this channel, but it's the rival of Shanks and the world's strongest swordsman, Hawkeye's Dracula Mihawk. Now Mihawk is definitely a controversial character to have on this list, as his showings have not been the most impressive in the world, especially considering his clashes with characters such as Crocodile and Vista during Marineford. Now, like I said prior, I have a whole video talking about why I think Mihawk is insanely strong and super underrated, so I'll keep this position relatively short, but to summarize, some of the reasons I think Mihawk deserves the number 6 spot: his title of strongest swordsman in the world, whether you like it or not, implies that he is above the likes of Shanks, and this honestly shouldn't be that much of a surprise, as the two are rivals, so even if they haven't fought in quite some time, it should still most likely not be that far apart. A mistake I made in my video about Mihawk was that he was the only character to travel around the world in a dingy boat by himself. Admittedly, I forgot about characters such as Kuzan and his bike, as well as Ace, Rockstar, and even Rayleigh, who swam to Amazon Lily. Regardless, besides Kuzan, Mihawk seems to be the only one who makes this a common practice, and I would argue Kuzan is a special case where he can literally freeze over the entire ocean around him, so it doesn't really matter as much. Now, I did say I'd keep it short, but for those reasons, and the reasons I listed in my Mihawk video, I had the world's strongest swordsman in the number 6 spot. Now, number 5 is a character I did not expect to be this high up, and debatably, I didn't even expect him to be on this list, but it's a member of the older generation, flying pirate, Shiki the Golden Lion. Now, I will admit right now that the older generation is about to dominate this upper half of this list, and Shiki's a perfect example as to why this group is so damn powerful. Before we even begin, I want to say that according to the One Piece wiki, him losing to Luffy is non-canon, so any feats I talk about here will be what's listed on the wiki as canon. So some obvious things that already show his insane strength: Shiki was considered one of Roger's greatest rivals, and the man had Roger backed up in a corner at some point, and presumably the only reason Roger survived was because of an unexpected storm. Now this is honestly insane already, and with just this you could argue that Shiki deserves to be at least on the top half of this list, especially considering that Shiki is one of the few pirates on this list that to my knowledge doesn't have an insane crew backing him up. Shiki don't got a Rayleigh or an Odin on his side, he doesn't have a Ben Beckman, he doesn't have even like a Zoro or a Saji. Furthermore, Shiki was a former member of the Rox Pirates and was notable enough to be mentioned by Sengoku in the first place. Speaking of Sengoku, let's talk about what it took to finally take down this absolute monster. After defeating several marine soldiers, Shiki was met by Prime Garp and Sengoku, debatably the two most powerful marines in history. Besides maybe Kong, we don't know how strong he was in his prime, or at all really. And even though he was eventually defeated, half of Marineford town ended up getting destroyed, presumably meaning the man didn't go down without a fight. For any character to put up a fight against Sengoku and Garp in their prime easily deserves to be on this list and in a high position. And then he eventually escaped anyway. He escaped Impel Down. I'm pretty sure he's the only one known to us. No, not the only one, sorry. I'm pretty sure he's the first. And then he was the first person ever known to eventually escape Impel Down. Without a doubt, I think Shiki deserves the number 5 spot. Now number 4 is another absolute favorite of mine, and another member of the older generation, but it's who I think is the most powerful marine, the hero of the marines, Garp the Fist. Garp has so many goddamn feats under his belt, it's absolutely crazy. Like Shiki, the man is one of Roger's greatest rivals, and you can make a pretty strong argument that narrative-wise, him and Sengoku play the part as the marine equivalents to Roger and Whitebeard, especially when talking about Garp. I did sorta badmouth Garp in the last position when I said it took both him and Sengoku to take down Shiki, but to be fair, you can make an argument that Garp carried the fight, even if we don't exactly know how it went down. Additionally, due to some narrative relevance, I just feel uncomfortable putting the hero of the Marines below a character like Shiki. Call me biased if you'd like, I'm sure just as many people would be upset if I put Shiki over Garp as well. Talking about some of Garp's insane feats, from defeating Don Jinchao to, like I said earlier, helping and defeating Shiki, to what is his most insane feat and one of the most insane feats in the entire series, of defeating the Rox Pirates with the help of Garp. All of these facts, plus his narrative equivalents to characters such as Roger and Whitebeard, make it easy for me to put the hero of the Marines in the number 4 spot. Now, depending on who you ask, the number 3 spot could be even higher on this list, but it's the world's strongest man, Edward Newgate, better known as Whitebeard. Now, Prime Whitebeard is a monster like none other, and for what we see, I believe his physical power is unmatched, even when comparing the top 2 spots. He's a legend of the Rox Pirates and another one of Roger's greatest rivals. Even in his old age, he kept the epithet of world's strongest and was a man considered closest to the One Piece, with a power capable of world destruction. I talked about how insane Whitebeard is in my Yonko video, as even as a sickly old man who is debatably the only person on his side who could defeat an admiral during Marineford, he still got incredibly close to saving Ace. He also kicked Akainu's ass while enraged, even as a sickly old man. So that's pretty impressive as well, Akainu being debatably a Yonko level character. Even Aokiji if you want to argue it. It was obvious Whitebeard would be on this list, so there's not really much to say, and I think the number 3 spot is 100% earned. Number 2 is a character who would obviously be on this list, but it's the Pirate King and the man who started everything, Gold D. Roger. Now what's there to say about this character? His rivalry with literally every other character in the top 5 is used as a benchmark for said character's strength and rating on this list. He's an equal to Whitebeard, the world's strongest man, and with Garp he took part in defeating the Rox Pirates. Not to mention, him and Garp used to have legendary duels all the time. There's not too much to say about Roger, considering it's obvious he'd beaten at least the top 3, but my reasoning for him being above Whitebeard is narratively based over anything. Roger's higher bounty, as well as his even more legendary status, and what I assume is better versatility, makes me believe Roger just slightly edges it out over Whitebeard. The two are pretty much equals in my opinion, so change them if you want, as you definitely could make solid arguments for both, but for now, I have the boy Roger at number 2. Hey guys, it's me, Rox Diesel here. Now the only real character that could be in the number 1 spot at this point is a man known as Roger's first and perhaps greatest rival, the captain of the legendary Rox Pirates, Rox Diesel. There's not much to say about Rox, as it's just not that much known about the character, but he was an absolute legend with what is easily the most powerful pirate crew we've ever seen. Rox is a character strong enough and with enough charisma to handle having a young Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Shiki, Captain John, and more under his reign, and this is especially impressive considering Rox's subordinates were filled with clashing personalities and a lack of camaraderie. The fact that Rox led all these monsters is absolutely insane and should be seen as an immense plus in Rox's favor. It took the combined might of Roger and Garp, who I consider both to be the most powerful pirate and marine respectively, obviously Roger maybe not as strong as Rox, to defeat Rox and his crew, and this feat is a reason Garp is known as the hero of the Marines. In my opinion, this was a decently obvious pick, but it's still possible to make an argument that with age, characters like Roger and Whitebeard surpassed Rox, or that Roger did the majority of fighting in the battle against Rox, but with all that we know at this current point, I'm more than comfortable putting Rox Diesel at the top of this list. And that's it! This is definitely one of the more difficult, but also more fun videos I've made, as I got to learn more about some really interesting characters like Shiki and Sengoku. With that, here's how I'd rank these characters by tiers. If you enjoyed this video, you better like and subscribe, and you better follow me on social media and join the Discord. You don't have to, but it would be much appreciated. Also, I stream live chapter readings on Twitch and YouTube every Friday at 6 AM PST, so be sure to check that out as well. And with that, I will see you later.